Everyone, and welcome back to the Star Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Star Wars. My name is Colin.
I'm Hunter.
I'm Christian.
Josh. Oh, we did it. We did it. We doubled it up
did
again.
And we
I'm
are
Star.
back with another episode. Oh, Star, why didn't you say anything?
You did.
We're already a
You
minute.
did. You did say something. Hello,
Right
Star.
out of the gate. Great job, everyone.
Wow. Okay. Well, now that we're all introduced, this is a breakdown for episode 3 of the Bad Batch season 2. It was a great episode. There were a lot of callbacks. There were a lot of emotions, and this kind of foreshadows things going forward, which we'll definitely talk about. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Josh, take it away.
All right. Okay. So this is going to be episode 3, the Solitary Clone. And we're opening up on a planet. We're coming down. So we have a troopers and an officer landing on the planet. So what are you getting from the what do you guys think of the vibe from the beginning of the episode going into it? Are you liking it so far? I mean, we get to a point where we meet with the governor.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So
yeah.
you're like, nothing good. Nothing good can happen here.
no, the first thing that popped out to me, honestly, was the art. I was like,
Yeah.
their budget went way up, in my opinion. Like,
So far up.
Oh, yeah. It's
like the way
so
the
crisp.
clouds move is like,
Yeah.
I thought this planet was great too. It's called the planet Dexis.
Dexis.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have the Galactic Empire going ahead and trying to relieve the title of governor of Desix. But yeah, we get a whole thing of her being like, I am not gonna give that to you, sorry. And then
one thing I'd like to point out at the start of this episode, because I think it's really obvious throughout this whole episode, but especially here at the start, they really highlight it. And then again at the end, but we'll get to that. But the shuttle that's coming in at the beginning of this episode is full of just stormtroopers. Even though it's a repurposed Republic shuttle, it's
troopers.
full of just stormtroopers. And they're there to do the bad stuff and kick the governor out. And then we see the clones come back, and in more ways than just showing their general demeanor and attitude, I think they are really highlighting the difference between the Republic and the Empire by using clones versus the new stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
I also like how the design for the new stormtroopers, of that transition from clone going to the TKs that we know, is that Ralph McQuarrie design for them, and we saw that in season 1 of the Bad Batch, and I love that they did that. But I love how they are bringing the original design of the stormtroopers into canon, because we've never really seen that before, and I don't think they did that in Legends. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think they brought that original design from Ralph McQuarrie. Like,
you're talking about Legends canon or just any of the Legends?
Oh, no.
They definitely did it in any of the Legends, but
Yeah.
Well,
I think originally there was a phase 3 armor for the clone troopers that got like thrown around design wise. That was like a midpoint between classic
There-
and New Hope stormtrooper and then the clone trooper as we know it.
Okay.
And then
Yeah,
this is
so-
just the McQuarrie original concept.
All right.
Right. In The Force Unleashed 1, we saw a hybrid between clones and TKs that had like sort of a TK visor with it was sort of a phase 2 lens, but then it morphed into a stormtrooper held down at the bottom. It's kind of a cool design, but that's really been the only time we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also pumped to see the McQuarrie stuff. I think it is an interesting choice, though, because they decided to add in this extra step when we've already seen Imperial stormtroopers in Clone Wars animation at the end of the Clone Wars. But I'm not complaining.
Well, I think that scene at the end of Clone Wars had to be like way, like, I mean, not way
Right.
down the
Yeah.
road of during the Age of the Empire, but it probably had to be at least maybe 5 years after.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured had to be either about 5 years after, or it would have to be after the first interaction we get between Ahsoka and Vader in Rebels.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I would like to see a callback to that scene at some point in the Bad Batch. Maybe there's an Imperial officer that's like, oh, we can't do this mission because we were assigned to this planet with Vader, and then like, oh, like that's a cool tie-in. This is something like that, because I remember, which I think all of us do, when that scene happened and we just saw Vader walk up and pick up Ahsoka's lightsaber, and we all had chills. And I know Hunter likes that scene because he did a full photo shoot of of that helmet in the snow.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would really, really like to see some type of connection to that. But I loved seeing the Ralph McQuarrie style of Stormtrooper. I can't wait until we get the full out TK in Clone Wars animation, because that's what I wanted in Star Wars Rebels.
Would you like
And
to see it in live action?
crazy enough, there's a bunch of movies that have it, but I'm not sure if you're aware. But for this planet, I really enjoyed it because the castle really gave me that type of vibe of so in the movie Monty Python and the Quest for the Holy Grail, that castle just I know that's a weird like connection, but that castle just reminded me of it in a way. And then there's the castle from the movie Willow that was very similar as well.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was like a homage to that, but it looked very similar. But anyways.
Yeah, I mean, continuing on, we fully get so the governor completely refuses. She's not going to let them take over, and then we get a bunch of battle droids coming in. So, what do you think of that?
I mean, I love anything that throws back to Clone Wars as much as possible. But there was something about seeing B1s back on screen that was just kind of like it lit up like the inner kid in me, because it was the second that happened, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get classic clone on droid violence in this episode. It's gonna be great.
I was not expecting to. I mean, I thought it was just going to be like the normal B1 battle droids. I was not expecting to see the commando droids
Mhm.
or the droidicas.
Yeah.
And
Or the tactical droid.
Oh my god, yeah. Just all of it was like Clone Wars vibes, and we knew that was the the thing that they were trying to do. But I love how they just didn't force that stuff in, and it made sense to the plot because they went to an old separatist planet.
Mhm.
I'm curious about the droid shutdown though, because they made it very clear that, oh hey, all of the droids are shut down, and it just sounded like it was like a clear order across the galaxy. But then you
They,
have different.
Yeah.
They mention that later in the episode.
Mhm.
I think either Cody or one of the clones brings it up when they're on the ship,
Yeah.
coming into the planet, and is like, "Hey, I thought there was a shutdown order," and I think Crosshair said, "Oh, they probably just reprogrammed or whatever." So Crosshair's probably seen this kind of thing before when he was going around doing Empire stuff before he was left on Camino.
Yeah, and I liked that because in Rebels, when you have the droids show up and they have been reprogrammed, and like I remember watching that in Rebels and being like, it's cool, but like, didn't they get a shutdown order? And I thought this kind of helped tie that together, where it's like, oh, there are pods of droids around that have been reprogrammed or somehow gotten around it. So
Because I think in Rebels we see battle droids 2 times. One is reprogrammed. The other one is the like Kalani droid.
Yeah.
That gets the order. Goes, this is obviously the Republic
Wrong.
messing with us. So we're just gonna ignore that order.
yeah.
Yeah. I also liked the fact that the governor had a droid type vibe to her as well, because of the helmet thing that she was wearing made it like appear that she was a droid, but then we find out later that she's not. And
That was a cool costume.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
continuing the episode, we open on Crosshair waking up. He goes to the mess hall, trying to eat, and anyone around him just absolutely despises him. Gives him a big look. They walk away, calling back to more of the episode's title. He's basically just all on his own. Gets called up to Rampart's office and is essentially talked to and told to go on a mission, and that he was actually left on Camino for, what is it, 31 days?
32.
32 days? Yeah. 32 days on his own.
You can also tell that it pains Crosshair that he lost his position of commander, because you like see him get excited of being like, oh, like I what troops are assigned to me, and then he's like, no, you are going to, to someone else, and you can just see like his emotion just drop me like, oh, okay. And then but I like how Commander Cody was the one to request him. And I think in a way, when Cody is talking to Crosshair when they first meet, and he brings up there have been some clones that are, leaving the Empire and stuff like that. To me, it sounded like Cody was trying to see what side Crosshair was leaning, because I think he was trying to recruit him to leave. And I think maybe that might point towards to what we see in the trailers of where Rex is like, where he reaches out to the Bad Batch and say, hey, I have a mission for you. I think that might be him maybe trying to rescue Cody. I think it might be maybe Cody is trying to help some other clones, and Rex is reaching out to the Bad Batch to help Cody. I'm very glad I was wrong about them fighting, and I think we're all happy about that too. But who knows?
That is for now. That is for now.
Right. Because I could see them doing the same thing that they did to Crosshair, where they maybe enhance Cody's chip and they make him like worse, and they make him more compliant. I hope that's not the case. And I know it sounds like I'm trying to make it sound like I really want them to fight, because I don't, but I could just see them going that way.
I think that we all know that Dave Filoni is probably going to hurt us as much as he can with this.
What?
So
would he do that? No,
never.
Way. Dave Filoni.
But as soon as I saw Crosshair in the trailer, Cody in the trailer, I knew it was going to go one of two ways. Either he was going to be bad, and there was going to be a showdown between him and Rex, or him and the Batch, or whoever, and that was really going to hurt a lot. Or he was going to turn good, and we know he's not in Rebels, so it's going to hurt a lot, just in a different way.
Yeah.
So here we are on path 2, and it's still going to be painful.
Yes.
Yeah, but it'll be like a bittersweet painful.
Wow. A big fan of the podcast, David Lozano, says that
Who's that?
Yeah, I know. He just some random guy. He commented saying that he wants a series about stormtroopers and what they had to go through. There is an actual fan film series on YouTube called Bucketheads, and that's very similar to what David's talking about, and that's really good. So if you guys haven't watched that yet, that's a lot of fun, and I think a lot of people from the 501st are in that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I highly recommend watching it, especially the Battle of Endor one. That opening scene, oh, it's so cool. Yeah. So I would definitely check that out, because those episodes are super, super great. It's on YouTube. It's called Bucketheads. Definitely check it out. But anyways,
continuing on with the episode. So Crosshair gets his new orders. He'll be commanded by Cody, and they end up meeting, and we see his new armor, Cody's new armor. What do you guys think of that? I was like, wow, it's so muted and sad and dreary in color.
I loved that Cody went through the effort to repaint the exact same markings back on his armor. It's like, they told him like, hey, you can't be original. You got to take off that orange. And he was like, okay, but I'm going to repaint the whole thing gray.
Yep.
You can
You
tell
know,
he's like
it's-
trying to keep his like personality and
Mhm.
keep his like individuality.
'Cause it's
and I like
interesting that
that.
they don't
Yeah.
just get rid of, like, tell them like, hey, you have to have new armor. Like, that's it.
Yeah,
It's
and
interesting
I-
that they still allowing them to have that kind of personality.
right, and I think that's indicative of Cody and where his character's at in general, because we saw Hauser, one of the only other clones that's still painted in season
Yeah.
1,
Mhm.
and he went AWOL, and now we're seeing Cody, and he still has some individuality left, and now he's going AWOL too. So
It's a
kind of
cool kind of like visual reference of
Yeah.
being like, hey, it's like you can see how muted down the color is, but the thing that makes them different is that they have a personality, and
right.
that goodness in them will keep them away from conforming. And it's interesting
Right,
seeing that on screen. Yeah, like almost every single clone that we've seen so far with a different armor set is either is a major player or just completely is done with the Empire by the
Yep.
end of the season or episode. Continuing on, they do end up landing on the planet. The governor is holding the officer hostage currently, so it's going to be a rescue mission. So what did you think of she ends up having a conversation with him that I thought was pretty interesting. It's cool seeing her side of what's going on currently in the galaxy. So I liked we have more separatist forces, and I believe later on during the episode we have a full conversation about how the separatists and the Republic tried to have a peace agreement there.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I really like this the way everything's been looking so far on this planet, and I'm really enjoying having that separatist feel from the Empire.
Yeah.
I definitely want to talk about that part of where Cody tries to talk about peace, but that's kind of further into the episode.
The end of the episode.
Yeah. Yeah. But I loved how for the most part in Clone Wars, a lot of the battles would start where some of the heroes crash land, they end up getting out of the ship, and then they fight their way through. So I loved how they kind of carried on that tradition in this. And you also see Crosshair actually, doing what Crosshair does, because he was specifically a sniper. Like, I
Mhm.
feel like that's what Crosshair was born to do. So seeing him do that a lot in this episode of just shooting through the actual through the tank cannon
Mhm.
was awesome. And seeing the whole thing with like the mirrors and kind of a callback to season 7 of Clone Wars when we actually first like saw him was awesome. So I'm glad we're kind of getting back to that OG feel, and I can see Star just freaking out.
No, it was straight up. Okay, so you may disagree with me, but it was straight up the best action sequence that we have seen in Bad Batch. Like, yes, it's amazing sniping, but like between him and Cody, and obviously I'm gonna go on the sniper angle. Like, anything Crosshair does is just brilliant, right? But like the moves they do, like it was absolutely phenomenal to see them get into this, like, higher budget animation, really, really smooth movements,
Mhm.
back to amazing Crosshair sniping. I mean, this episode just delivered the Clone Wars action, the droids versus clones that like unparalleled in Bad Batch so far. In my
Yeah, they've got the
humble
same like
Crosshair
language
opinion.
as well.
But
Like they're
Mhm.
using the same kind of old terms that we used to hear, and I'm like, oh, this is some great callbacks of them just
Yeah.
trying to get in.
oh yeah,
It's really cool.
That stairway fight, the animation there was
Oh.
like, whoa. It was so good. And I'm sure they're not doing mocap for all this stuff, but it looked that good.
It did.
And
it did.
just like you said, Star, their budget now just seems to be maybe it's a combination of their budget being higher, but them also being so experienced at this point that they can just make things look real.
Yeah.
But that was awesome. And then, of course, seeing Cody's knife at the end was a really interesting thing. That was really just a knife to the heart.
Yes.
But I don't really know how I feel about that, because at first it's like, wait, that's Hunter's knife. And then I guess Hunter's knife is just standard issue, but he carries it around everywhere.
I didn't see
Yeah.
him even. I don't think I saw him carrying it at all. Like, I mean, on his actual like suit, I didn't see any
No.
like knife holder place on his boot or anything
No.
like that. So
No.
he like must have been
It's
holding it like, under his armpit or something, and was just like, all right, let's go. Because
it's a phantom knife. The
it
way
just
that
came out of nowhere, and I was
Tech
like,
has
I mean,
phantom
cool,
blasters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but-
just like how
yes.
Hunter doesn't have like blaster, like
because
Yeah, yeah.
it's
exactly.
it is just
Yep.
like
Yep.
Tech, because
Yep.
Tech apparently doesn't have anywhere to carry his blaster, so he
That-
just holds them
neither
all
does
day.
That kind of
Hunter.
thing is rampant in the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, so I at first loved the knife scene because I was like, oh, cool, they're trying to like poke at your heartstrings because, like, oh my gosh, look, you got saved by this knife, like Crosshair Hunter. But I actually, upon thinking about it a little bit more, I was like, it just seems like now, like, wait, that's Hunter's thing. And now does it mean that Hunter's not that special because, like, anyone can do it? Like, like it just felt a little bit like, wait, I thought the cool like reflexes was like he's got enhanced senses, and like it was kind of weird. I don't know, but I still like the scene. Obviously, it was a great fight scene. I'm just nitpicking because I was like, wait, that's Hunter. But
Yeah, I mean,
think
some of my favorite parts of that like entire fight scene were just like having the battle droid like fall into the droidica's like shield,
Mhm.
explode. I was like, that was really cool.
it was really good.
Yeah, different parts of that thing. I was just like, yeah, this is some amazing animation, as you're saying from before.
Yeah, and I will real quick backtrack to the knife throw. I'm wondering if part of it is the fact that we know that according to old part of Legends, but the Kaminoans, when they were growing the clones, if they were for different units, would be training them differently.
Mhm.
So like the commandos were grown in a different batch, and then would be a different training set and
Mhm.
different kinds of modifications to their genetics to make themselves a little more like in general. The Bad Batch is just an extreme modification set.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's because we know Cody is Commander Cody from the get-go. Maybe he's just in like a separate class of training
Yeah.
compared to the standard clone trooper.
I think there was something I'm sure this probably isn't canon anymore, but at one point it was that Cody used to be I don't think it was ARC Trooper, but that's like a part of a special unit. And that's
Mhm.
how he got his scar. It was something with that.
Yeah.
So he's probably got a lot of tricks up his sleeve that we haven't seen, but
It's true. And he is amazing. So,
Yeah.
he can
yeah,
he can do whatever he wants. I just, Hunter
There,
I just
was-
wanted Hunter to have, his special knife
Yeah.
stuff.
yeah,
but-
there was a moment right where he's about to throw the knife where it looks like Crosshair's where he's like, "Oh, is this gonna hit me?"
Yeah,
yeah. It would be really interesting too we didn't see Cody with a knife sheath or anything. What if Crosshair's just holding that like a knife like that and keeps it on his person, and it's like a Bad Batch thing, and
Hey, yes.
Cody pull it off him during a fight? But this is all speculation.
Yeah,
That'd
Like,
be cool.
are you telling me that you are trying to put logic into Star Wars? Really?
Not at all, Colin.
rookie mistake.
Come on, bro. No, but you also have to think that Crosshair has that giant. That he is that giant. That he has his backpack, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, so Hunter's, kind of logic, reasoning makes sense of where it was probably an off-screen thing where he's like, "Hey, Cody, here's this," and he just gives him the knife.
Or as he's going
Yeah.
up the stairs, he gets behind, Crosshair and just plucks the knife off the back.
Yep. Classic Clone Wars. But yeah, anyways, go ahead.
Continuing on in the episode, they end up finally making it all the way up to the officer who's being held hostage currently by the governor. We have a full speech. What did you think about this speech? I really, really enjoyed this all the way up until the end of that speech, which was a fun little kind of turn of events. But I mean, with the Empire, I expect nothing less.
Mhm.
Wait, which speech? Because Cody gave a speech, but then also the governor gave.
From the governor's side, she starts talking about what it means for peace and
Mhm.
what it means for peace currently because of where they are standing now with the galaxy and the Empire. I really like hearing her side of like, we had time for peace and there's no more peace anymore with this whole empire system. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, really enjoyed that. But yeah, like Cody's whole decision to like diffuse the situation by immediately being like, hey, I'm gonna lower our gun. We're gonna lower our guns. I'm gonna take off my full helmet. You can see that I'm just as human as you, and there's still an option for peace. So, I really enjoyed like
Yeah.
how I think a cool part about Star Wars right now is how many times they have to actually take off their helmet to be known as someone that's actually human. I don't think it's maybe like something being like, hey, I'm vulnerable that you can shoot me very easily. It's I'm not a robot here. I'm actually just like you. Which is
Yeah.
very interesting because you never see that in the sequels. I mean, sorry, from you never see that in the original trilogy. And I'm wondering what point it gets to where they're like, we're not going to allow you to take off your helmets. There is no time for like diplomatic conversations. Like there is no time for peace. It's empire only.
I kind of interpreted Cody's attempt at negotiation as like a little bit of an Easter egg for the nickname that Obi-Wan held as the negotiator, because Cody was Obi-Wan's commander. But at the same time, it was also, I think, more emblematic of the fact that Cody, one, is showing his independence away from Order 66, again, by being like, hey, we don't have to take the violent option. We can just pull out. And it's him trying to maintain the idea that peace is something that is possible, but we both sides have to be willing to work on it. But if both sides aren't willing to do it, then there's no point even trying it. Then it's all just empty gestures.
I felt that maybe Cody was pulling a Obi-Wan. Like, I felt like he learned from Obi-Wan, and it felt like he was trying to negotiate with them. And you could definitely see that this was the breaking point of where Cody was like, all right, I'm not on the right team. I need to leave. After he promises her peace, and then the new appointed governor is just like, all right, you need a killer. And then he is refusing, and Crosshair doesn't even hesitate. He just goes like that, because in Crosshair's mind, which this happens a lot, where the villain never really sees them as the bad guy. Like the bad guy never sees themselves as the bad guy. So in his mind, he's doing the right thing, and he just takes her out. You can see that look in Cody's face. He's like, all right, I've had enough. And it was very dark. It was very gritty. We are in that season now of the Bad Batch where all the characters are very established. So now we can focus more on their personality traits and stuff like that. So I'm very excited to see where they go with Cody, because I was hoping that they wouldn't fight, which, like we talked in the beginning, there's a chance that Rex and Cody might fight. We'll have to see, but I like the whole very similar traits that he maybe picked up from Obi-Wan, where he was trying to negotiate. I thought I thought that was kind of a cool tie-in.
Yeah, I see. And I thought, okay, so I thought that whole sequence gave some like almost props to the fact that the clones, their chips are like degrading and going down, because if Cody, like, I'm sorry, but if Cody is going to leave the Empire over shooting a random person, he definitely would have left about shooting Obi-Wan, right? Because he thinks he shot Obi-Wan off the cliff. And so in my opinion, what I see there is going, okay, we're not seeing, oh wow, this is the last straw, Cody's just electing to leave. It's that influence is degrading from the chips, because if he was going to leave, he would have left about killing his general who he loves. And so I really liked how you could almost start to see more of the mechanism of the chips. You're going, oh, this makes sense. This makes sense. You're giving them time. They're degrading, just like Hauser, just like everyone else. At least that's how I interpreted it. So, but yeah, I liked that a lot.
I think for Crosshair, he said that he did remove his chip a while ago, so he's acting on free will right now. He's not influenced by the
Did
chip.
he? Did he?
Did he though? Yeah,
I
he
mean-
said that during that battle in the training room on Camino. But at the same time, we saw right at the beginning of season 1, they put him in that CAT scan looking thing and
Right.
juice up his chip. And then a few episodes later, he gets scorched on the side of the head, conveniently where they have to take the chip out of. So
Right,
we
yep.
can't see a scar. We don't know if it's there. We don't know anything. So we'll see. I think it's up in the air for sure.
I agree. Yeah. I don't
Okay.
think I wouldn't trust Crosshair's word. Just gonna throw that out there.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I mean, for me, it was like, why would he lie? Like that would not. I mean, I could see him, maybe lying and saying like, I'm not acting on the chip. I'm acting on free will to show them that that he's not being controlled by the chip and he can make his own decisions, and that might influence his brothers to join him. And they're like, oh, he's acting on free will, maybe he's right, but they don't buy into the whole empire thing.
Sure, but I think that's also like he could think he's telling the truth. And
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Like they go and they enhance his chip, like what Hunter was saying. And then they could tell him, hey, by the way, we just took out your chip. And they didn't. They enhanced it. Like he could genuinely not be lying, but still have his chip.
Yeah.
Okay.
We see him grab his head all the time. He's clearly has something going on. They say they enhance it. They want him to be this soldier person. And if I was the Empire, I'd tell him like, oh, buddy, you're making your own choices. Like,
Yeah.
go for it. And it's still in. Like, that's what
Do-
I would
do you-
do. So, like,
do you
he
think
could
it's-
think he's being honest?
He's not lying because he doesn't know.
Yes.
Right.
But do you think
exactly.
it's something to do with even like the title of this episode? How maybe he's just wanting the approval? Like maybe it's
Yeah.
like a deeper feeling of like, hey, like he has always been the kind of person like I have to follow orders, I have to do this because maybe for him that's his only recognition of that he's doing good because he feels like an outsider no matter where he goes. Even if he was with the original team, I still feel like he would feel like he's an outsider. So, like, I mean, Rampart even says he's like, "Hey, it's commendable that you still came back to the Empire after being out there for so long and doing all these things." And I feel like that's what's really keeping him there and following all the orders. Is that like, I don't want to be on the run for the rest of my life. I don't want to feel like an outsider for the rest of my life. I want these higher ups to see me for how good I actually am after him in his entire life being known as like a reject.
Mhm. I mean,
So-
it's clear that he's still being viewed as an outsider by the other clones that are present in the barracks because he goes to sit down in the cafeteria, and the two other clones that are at the table sort of look at him and look at each other, and then just sort of get up and walk away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Continuing on with the episode, we have the governor shot, the officer rescued. The officer commands that her body be placed in display for everyone on the planet to see. Empire completely takes over. They head back, and then we get a conversation between Crosshair and Cody over in front of a giant mural. What did you guys think of this conversation?
It hurt.
Yeah. That conversation is the conversation that had me sitting for an hour in my office this morning, just being like,
Yeah. I almost said this earlier, but then it just got brought up here. But like when he says, like the thing that makes us different from battle droids is like we make our own choices.
Mhm.
I just sat there and I was like, dang, this whole time, like, I don't know if it's just me, but like Crosshair's lines when he responds to things, he says the same like 4 phrases spliced up. He says, good soldiers follow orders. He says, we do what needs to be done. He's got these kind of phrases that he comes back to that are just always this catch point of this is why we're right. This is why. And it's almost robotic. It's almost droid-like. And so having Cody like say that was just like this. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So
I
good.
think it was Cody's last ditch effort to be like, hey, if you haven't caught in the drift of how I feel at this point, I'm basically just flat out telling you. And it was him hinting that I'm out of here. I can't do this anymore. This is obviously wrong. I can't believe that you don't see it's wrong when the whole rest of your squad obviously saw that it was wrong. So do whatever you want to do, but
You're
at
doing it
some point you're
alone.
going to have to think about what you've done.
Yeah.
I think it also kind of hinted at the fact that like the way that he said you have to like live with the choices you've made, you could almost see like that remorse in his face. And I kept just thinking about like Obi-Wan, of him being like, I have to live with this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, Cody knows.
he does.
He knows
yeah.
the feeling. And
Yeah.
I think the look of surprise on Cody's face when Crosshair shot the governor
I know.
was like, whoa, dude.
Heartbreaking.
Whoa. And it's almost like he could sort of tell that Crosshair didn't, and he's surprised about that, and he's trying to get him to snap out of it, just like the rest of the batch did at the end of season 1.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Continuing on with the episode, we basically have a lingering shot of Crosshair waking up and just basically mulling over in his quarters of just the situation of what's happened. Then he continues on with his day, going to the mess hall, and then he finally gets called up to Rampart's office. Once he's there, he gets told he's done a good job, gets given another mission, but that he's going to be commanding it this time. And he basically asks, like, why isn't Commander Cody going ahead with this? And, why am I not reporting to him? And he's like, Rampart's like, I don't even know who Cody is. I need a note. Like, and then he's like, oh yeah, sorry. I'm gonna give you the code number for it. Oh, okay. Gives the code number and basically gets told, yeah, that guy's basically gone AWOL. Cody's completely gone AWOL. So I thought that was pretty interesting and understandable of why you would want to leave. But I think it's processing more that the Empire's clone regiment is absolutely just disappearing left and right.
Mhm.
And I wonder where the point is where they're just going to be like, all right, no clones, get them out.
I think we're going to see that this season.
Soon.
Yeah.
Very, very soon.
I also think because the last shot we see on the planet where the mission takes place, where they're packing up, the clones
Yeah.
that are left into the shuttle to fly off, and you see the new stormtroopers arriving. It's very indicative they're only using clone troopers now for anything that requires like going up against battle droids or anything
Yeah.
that's a little more high stakes
Just
that
cannon
could be
fodder.
disposable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also shows you how different the Republic is to the Empire, because that famous line from Plo Koon in season 1, of where I can't think of the clone's name, but he's like, they won't come and rescue us. We're exposable. And then Plo Koon's like,
That was either sinker or boost.
I think
Yeah.
it's boost.
yeah. And it's really sad that we're coming to this, and because of the clones did so much for the Republic and for the galaxy, and the reason why they were made was to serve the Republic, and now that's falling out. They will see them eventually kind of turn into what we see in Kenobi, where it's the homeless clone just sitting on the ground. And I just remember like our whole group and everyone like in the screening when we went, it was just it was great to see a clone, but it was very sad to see
Yeah.
him just sitting there as a him being homeless and just kind of asking for scraps when I bet that clone did so much for the whole galaxy, and now he's just sitting there and he's not. He kind of lost his purpose.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens because that's a big part. It's like, hey, imagine like a point where it's like I wonder if it's like a full clone rebellion. It's like, or it's just like the Empire being like, no clones, you'll never come back. They're like, we are completely outlawing it. You can't even register again. Thanks for your service. Goodbye. Yeah, so then we basically just close out the episode with Crosshair getting his new told that he's done a great job, new mission, and he walks back to his quarters or puts on his helmet and walks away. And yep, that's the current episode end for episode 3. Any final thoughts from anyone?
Yeah, Crosshair does not sleep with a pillow. That looks really painful. And can the poor guy? Yeah, and can the poor guy finish a lunch? Like, no wonder.
I love that he looked way more pissed off about that the second time.
I love that detail.
Yeah, he was like, I mean, at least I got a bite out of this meal, but come on, man.
Yeah.
I also liked the episode of the title where it was called the Solitary Clone, and it seemed like not only was it felt like he was in a kind of self prison himself because he was dealing with all of his emotions, and then him being in his quarters also seemed like he was in a prison cell. Like he would wake up every day, not really looking forward to the day because he lost his command. He doesn't have his normal family with him and everything. And everybody, all the other clones, all of the normal clones, that see him don't still want nothing to do with him. Every time he sits down, that they end up getting up, and he just feels alone because he doesn't have Crosshair. I mean, he doesn't have Hunter. He doesn't have the rest of his family. So that title has a lot of the episode title has a lot of meanings to me, where it's not just like So I'm very curious of what the outcome for Crosshair will be at the end of the season, because he is such a good soldier, follows orders type guy, and I'm really curious of what that's gonna go until like the end of the show, because he's such an interesting character, and he just wants to bring everyone on the same page that he is, but I don't think it will go the way that he wants it. Well, there you go. Wow. Anyways, after the awkward silence, no, I'm just kidding.
I mean, the rest of the season is just going to be very painful for all his clone.
Oh yeah, it is.
It's gonna suck.
Looking at the trailers too, we see Omega and the rest of the batch on Coruscant, so we know they're headed there for someone, whether it be Crosshair or Cody. I would assume that either of those are probably the reason why they're headed to Coruscant. So it's going to get real messy, I think.
Yeah. And there's certainly, I mean, in Star Wars Legends, like precedent of go get your clone friends out of the Empire, So I see where they're kind of drawing some inspiration there. So I'm excited to see that.
Me too.
I think something that I would love to see, I don't know if it's going to happen this season, but I think it would be very interesting if maybe we saw an assassination attempt on the Emperor, by like maybe Crosshair comes to his senses and then he blames, for all of his actions on the Emperor. And then he takes it to a personal level where he's the one that, that goes after him. But I could definitely see them going to Coruscant for that. I could see them going to Coruscant to save Cody. Like maybe Cody never left the planet. Maybe he's hiding in the lower levels with other rogue clones. I could definitely see that happening, which I know that's what Star wants. But yeah. So I'm wondering if we'll see Gregor more in this season, because I loved seeing him last season, but I could see him maybe being with Rex on the mission to go save Cody, and then maybe he's also maybe Wolf is one of the deserting clones that Cody runs into, and then that's how we see Rex, Gregor, and Wolf be like, all right, how about we go to this planet in exile, and maybe Cody doesn't make it or something. I don't know. I could see it happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, a small part of me is hoping they find some way to hint at the original Kenobi series treatment for Cody, which was he was supposed to be on Tatooine with Obi-Wan, but then they ended up cutting that out of the whole series.
Yep.
That would be rad.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Just a little bit of closure.
That
for
would be
two
the
of them.
happiest ending possible.
That would be the best ending possible.
I'm
for
here
it.
for
For that reason alone, I feel like it's most unlikely.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean,
Dave Filoni's a part of
Yeah,
this. It's not
I
going
was
to
gonna
happen.
say it is Dave Filoni. He will make you fall in love with these characters too, and when you least expect it, boom, something happens. You're like, all right, well, because could you imagine if they ended up doing something like that to Rex, or like because I remember after Clone Wars, I was just like, oh man, like I was afraid because we didn't know anything that happened, and then we saw him in Rebels, and I'm like, oh, he's alive, like woo! And I could just not imagine them doing anything like that to Rex. I love Cody, but after what he did to Obi-Wan, I'm
Yeah.
just like, come on, bro, come on. I'm
He's
just
going to
kidding.
be.
But yeah, so that was a great episode. I can't wait to see the episode where we tie into Kashyyyk with the Wookiees and Gunji. That's gonna be awesome. I'm hoping that's next week's episode because I loved Gunji. I love Gunji so much, and to see him survive Order 66 was very unexpected, and it's gonna be awesome to see him come back and kind of adjust to the whole lifestyle of being on the run. Yeah. There you go. Okay, now we will dive into some news. There wasn't that much news that happened this week. But first things first, Skeleton Crew should be done filming in March. How much do you guys know about Skeleton Crew?
I
Just
know
out of
that Jude
curiosity.
Law's in it.
Yes.
That's about
You
as
are
much
not
as we
wrong.
know as well.
Yeah. If I remember the celebration panel correctly, they said it was going to be something akin to like a Stranger Things feeling.
Yes.
And as long as it's not like, oh, we're trying to make it feel like it's the 80s in Star Wars, but or like, no, it's the vibe of the 80s, then I'm okay
Yeah.
with it.
I've been saying for a while, I want a Star Wars show where it seems like it is an old copy of a VHS where I can just plug it in and watch it, and you just get that 80s vibe. And I think that's what they're slowly doing with these new series too, where they can kind of pretend like they're casting people during like those times where those actors were super famous during the 80s and 90s and stuff, because you have Christopher Lloyd coming into season 3 of Mando, and we all love him as Doc Brown. So I'm very, very thrilled to see what they do with him in that show, and having Stranger Things, Goonies type vibe of a Star Wars show. Sign me up. I think that's going to be great. It's going to be Lost in Space. There will be a lot of unknown region stuff and a lot of origins for different things in the Star Wars universe, it sounds like. But what are you guys' your expectations for the show? I know Josh's, but
Some fun Star Wars.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my expectation going into every show, and I've tried to stop like writing the storyline for myself in my brain for stuff, because it's never going to be that. And even if
Yeah.
it's something that's really, really good, it can still feel disappointing when it's not what you've written in your head. So I just kind of like to go with the flow and see where it takes us. And maybe it'll be kind of a new vibe, a new way to tell Star Wars stories like Andor was. And I think that would be awesome. But
Yes.
I'm here for whatever it is.
Oh yeah, I'm really excited for new Star Wars just in general. I mean, anytime that we get a full kind of like 180 and in basically vibe, basically, where Andor was like a complete 180 from Kenobi in sense of like visual wise and the way the acting was, and just it's a whole direction. And I think that's an amazing part of Star Wars right now is that we can get all these different directors to basically give their own spin on Star Wars with the influence of other people like Dave Filoni. I think is great. I love that for Star Wars.
Yeah,
keeps things quite varied, and as the old saying is, Star Wars is for everyone. And I feel like right now is a great time to be with Star Wars. That everyone has at least one thing that they would be able to enjoy with it.
agreed. And then the other news for this week would be the director who made the writers for Detective Pikachu are working on a Star Wars.
Is the writer director?
It's the writers. So I thought the movie was great. I think they're leaning towards more people that worked with Ryan Reynolds because there's a lot of other projects coming out of Star Wars that are people that worked with Ryan Reynolds directly. And I think that's an interesting take on Star Wars.
Have a fully comedic Star Wars movie. Like it's a full comedy. That would be interesting.
Detective Rancor.
Yeah.
Down.
And that would be like the origin story of the Rancor that we see in the Book of Boba Fett. Like he like had a life before.
Yes.
Like,
Perfect. Sign me up.
Which that's and the reason why we're talking about it because Hunter is working on a Rancor costume, which I haven't seen you talk about it that much lately.
No, I haven't done much on it lately. I'm hoping to get back to it this weekend, actually.
Okay.
I've just been really sidetracked with
Really? I had no idea.
lots of other projects. And
No, really?
You?
Yeah. My Mando build, which I'm trying to get done for WonderCon, a few droids, some more helmets.
A few droids, okay.
Like 3, 4.
Yeah, like 3, 4. A Rancor.
Just three.
5 other clone builds and Max Rebo. Just
Repairing other builds.
No, you wish, Colin.
I do actually, but I would for a comedy like movie wise or show wise, I would love to see maybe a tag in. Okay. Do we remember the old comic book series called Tag and Bank? I want that, but I want it made canon because those were awesome to me. And I know there's no way.
Have expressed your love for Tag and Bank for as long as I've known you.
It's so good. It's so good, bro. It's so funny. And those two characters were supposed to be in Solo, and then they had to write them out. And I was like, come on, man. It was right there.
I know it's a little divisive for some people, but do you feel like it would be okay to have Star Wars media but have it not be canon?
They already do that with Visions.
Yeah.
So I know they did it with Visions, and I know that what they want to do with the second Vision season and be like, this one story is canon, or this element of the story is canon. This is, I forget what it's called. It's that Legends thing. That's that midway point where this exists. It's a new thing on screen. However, these events didn't happen. They do that with the Lego Star Wars, where it's like it's a droid, but it exists in Star Wars. That's canon. However, it's not these events.
Hold the phone. Are you telling me the mission in the new Lego Star Wars game where you have to get Max Rebo off of Tatooine all the way to Naboo because he's late for a gig? That's not canon. Are you kidding me? Come on, bro.
Because I'm interested because the whole Tag and Bing thing requires it not to be canon, and it would be very hard to like have it be canon and fit in properly. I just think that like I'm wondering where we can get to a point where you can make more Star Wars projects, because I feel like right now we just have animation wise, like it'll stay in animation and this will be its separate thing and it's not going to be canon. You don't have to like follow up with everything with this, but we can have fun with this and just go wild and crazy. Because towards the future of Star Wars right now, I don't want them to run into the whole Marvel thing where they're like, we have to stick in this MCU canon, we have to stay here, and they'll eventually hit a point where it's like, hey, we have to reboot this entire thing. We got to do
Yeah.
something new. Whereas I don't want that to happen for Star Wars. I feel like being able to keep it fresh with non-canon things is great, which I think that they keep doing right now is with the book series. It's like, it's not official until it's actually on screen, that kind of thing right now. So
Mhm.
That's
That's
kind of
my
the angle they're leaning towards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like I kind of feel like they won't run into that problem because like you can always make up a new, you know, planet or place and throw people there and come up with a whole series that you can say is canon and people never interact with people from the movies or you know like even Andor had a lot of ties but at the same time it was a lot of new people, a lot of like new fresh things, and so in some way like you could say hey this is canon but these are fully new characters, this is a fully new time period. I mean they can go all the way back in the past, they can go in the future, you know, they have a lot of directions they can go because they're not like constrained in the way that like the Marvel universe is, where it's like, well, we don't want it to go too far because then these people wouldn't be alive because human lifespans, because like Star Wars already spans so much time. You know, I don't know.
We already have a species of little green aliens that can live for up to if not more than
Yeah.
1,000 years. We can play around with this a bit.
You've got endless, endless possibilities.
I worry with Star Wars media, especially with live action, where I feel like live action gets viewed as being the canon stories way more than animated stories
Yeah.
end up being viewed.
I think that's an official statement as well.
Yes and no, because everyone was like, okay, great, that's the initial statement that made all of Clone Wars where we had gotten at that point not canon, but then they went and recanonized Clone Wars.
Mhm.
And then all of what happens in Rebels is canon.
Mhm.
But I worry if, like, unless they specifically come out with statements about, like, these animated parts are canon, I always just assume they're fun bits of Star Wars. Whereas, like, if you did, like, you know, a live action series or movie that was, like, entirely, like, bringing in something that's not canon in a very silly way, I'm going to worry that someone who's going to walk in and be like, oh, this is the new canon now, right? If there's not a giant disclaimer somewhere that says not canon, just us messing with things.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because I mean, Clone Wars had such a constraint on it having a film made, having the prequel to a film that like some characters in the show can never meet other characters, even though it's so obvious that they could. They can't talk about things, even though like it's so obvious that they could, just because keeping in that canon and how close they are. It's like, I'm glad that we're at a point where we're with the Bad Batch, especially. It's kind of like we know what comes in the future, but it's so far in the future that events can happen that completely change things. These are characters that can, they have more ability to be able to talk, ability to be able to do their own actions, and things that make sense in. You don't always have to be like, okay, yeah, I understand that you can't talk to this person or you can't do that because of events in the future. And
how many seasons can we put Anakin right next to Grievous without them ever seeing each other?
Mhm.
Because he's never
Right.
supposed to know how tall Grievous is.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember when they did that and they specifically like said, oh well, we couldn't have them fight or anything because of that one line and
You're shorter than I expected.
Right. And it's just like, oh man, I would have loved to see that fight in the Clone Wars. That would have been sick. And then every time I play Star Wars Battlefront 2 and I'm doing heroes and villains and I see, you know, them clash, I'm like, that's not canon. I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, I would love I would love to see more stories that are not canon, just like just kind of to be there. That's fine. Because I'm not sure if you guys remember, but there was a show. It was fully animated. There's like 2 seasons of the show. It's called Star Wars Detours. It was supposed to be on Cartoon Network around the same time that Disney and Lucasfilm were doing the deal. So those shows never got aired, but those shows exist. That like show exists somewhere in the archives of Lucasfilm, just sitting there. And I would love to maybe see them add that. The trailer is online. It is kind of, it's made by the same people. It's some of the same writers as Family Guy and stuff. So it's kind of like that comedy level. But just those type of shows where they have visions and stuff like that. I think it's really cool because, you could say that, this story is just a story. It's a legend. It has nothing to do with the canon timeline, but just do it tasteful. So it's not like every episode starts out with canon, not canon, right? Yeah. But I think the reason why I enjoyed Visions, especially that first episode, was I could clearly tell that was not going to be canon. But I loved the story, and I wanted to continue the story of his name is Ronan, and I know they made a book and everything, but just seeing like a small series on Disney Plus about him, I would have watched that because that was very interesting to me. I would love to see more stories about that. Christian wanted to quickly talk about some of the episode titles.
Yeah, just real quick.
Yeah.
Especially because you were talking about you were hoping to see Gunji in the next episode.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to be the next episode. I could see that being episode 6, which is titled Tribe.
Okay.
Because we know that at least in more Legends style stuff that Wookiees are described as having tribes, as this kind of in the same way Tuskens have different tribes. So I have a feeling we're not going to see him right away, but I really hope he's coming up soon because Gunji is one of my favorite characters of all time. He's the coolest lightsaber design, and he's the cutest Jedi Padawan. So
He's definitely the cutest. I will give you that.
By far.
By far.
I'm low key freaking out because I don't know why I just realized this, but episode 12, the title is Outpost. And to me, there's a couple of, places that could be, but I'm thinking it might be Black Spire Outpost on Batu.
Please,
I think,
please. Oh my gosh, please.
I think that's a pipe dream, but honestly, if they did that, that would be great. Because that needs to hit, the screen in some way, either if it's the big screen or, TV screen, that's fine. But I think if they ended up going to Batu, that would be a very kind of Bad Batch area, just because of the vibe of Galaxy's Edge and everything. And then they could also explain to why they have the kettle corn that Wrecker.
Mantel mix.
Yeah. Yes. So that would make sense. It would be that, oh, that's why, because of Wrecker was, walking by and was like, oh, hey, I think you guys need this or something like that. And be like, oh, cool. So I would love to see that.
I would love to see Batu get worked into a full canon in some way that isn't just like, an accessory through the parks or the books. And I feel like an animated show like Bad Batch could be a great way to like warm it up and then bring it into a live action point later.
Does anyone know what the episode titled Pabu is referencing?
I was trying to think.
I have no idea.
Just
Why do we
curious.
Is it
You don't
the
know
cousin?
what it is? Come on.
Big fan.
No, I've been exposed. No, maybe it's the cousin of Babu Frick. Maybe it's the brother.
Yeah. Pabu Frick.
Well, I don't know. I'm just trying to think. There's also Truth and Consequences in the Clone Conspiracy. That sounds very sad to me.
Yeah.
Let's see. The Crossing. Could that maybe be Crosshair is crossing over to the light side? Like, I don't know.
Might be Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I can see that being Metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited for the Clone Conspiracy. That
Yeah.
sounds
7
like
and 8.
my kind
7
of
and 8 are
stuff.
gonna
Let's go.
be.
I think that's the mid-season finale
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So both of those episodes will air at once, and then the last 2 episodes will also air at once. Oh yeah, there's episode 10, which is called The Retrieval, and I think that's going to be maybe where they go in and they try and rescue some of the clones that went AWOL. I'm hoping Cody's among them and possibly Commander Wolf. Again, I think having Wolf would be, and well, I mean, I don't know. Okay. So here's my thing about Crosshair. Here's my thing. There are a lot of characters that in Star Wars that go down that arc of redemption. I don't know if I want that for Crosshair. I think having a clone that is just bear with me, Star. Just bear with me. I think that I think that having a clone that is very set on his ideals and he's not getting influenced to change, I think that would be very interesting, because I remember playing Star Wars Battlefront 2 of the campaign for it, and there was Iden Versio, and it was like, oh, this is great. It's a
Empire
a character.
campaign.
Yes, that is clearly for the Empire. And then a couple of missions in, spoiler alert, she's now part of the Rebel Alliance. And you're like, oh, okay. Like, all right. I was really hoping for to mainly be part of the Empire. And I think having that for Crosshair would be great.
You really think someone with that kind of voice can be a good person?
Yes, I do.
Because you also have to look at the original idea of the story arc for Kylo Ren, where in the script for Duel of Fates, he was never supposed to be go back to Ben Skywalker. He was supposed to, as Ben Solo, he was supposed to stay Kylo Ren. He never got that redemption in the original script. And I wish they went that route for his character. Because as much as
it's an expectation, and that's something that I don't know if I want it to keep that way, because it's like the whole rhyming thing. It's like everyone gets a redemption arc.
Right.
Everyone gets this like peaceful ending kind of piece. And even if they die, it's like a full like redemption bit. And I'm kind of like, I would love the whole kind of thing being like, I'm not joining you. Even with me being treated this badly. No.
I agree they haven't done that, but hear me out. They also haven't had someone turn good and survive ever. Seriously, it's like you can be evil and turn good, but you're dead. Like I'm sorry, like, can we have like one person survive so then you can actually see what they do with their life instead of just like immediately keeling over, like Darth Vader, Kylo Ren. Like you just don't get, like you just die. Like
okay,
anyway.
So what we're hearing is you want Crosshair to die.
No. I'm saying I don't want them to do that, because that's what they always do. I want an extreme. Either he needs to stay with the Empire or he needs to like turn good and then actually get a story, because you never get to see like rehabilitated villains. They just like do one good deed and then they die.
Okay, so here's, it's not Star Wars, but here's an example. There is Negan from The Walking Dead. After all he did, and then
It's not Star Wars.
Well, yeah. But I'm just saying it's like that. After, could you imagine after Rise of Skywalker if Ben survived and came back with Rey and all of them to the base and be like, "Hey guys, what's up?" That would have just been, that's awkward.
That's a definite. That I like what you're talking about with that whole opinion. How you're like, I want to see what they would be like after that. That is a definite interesting thing.
Mm-hmm.
If he knew.
You don't die, but you still have to live with that consequence of what you've done.
Yeah.
I would love to see that in Star Wars.
That'd be a
cool.
new thing. I'd like that. And nobody's gonna be upset if Cody gets to like, he tried to kill Obi-Wan, and if he comes back being good, everyone's gonna be like, yay. So like, gotta extend that to Crosshair too.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oh man. All right. So it sounds like what Star wants like for the rest of the season. Christian and Hunter, what are your kind of thoughts and expectations for like the end of the season of what you would want to see?
I want to see more episodes like this one. I want to see more clone-centric stuff. I talked about this last week when we were talking on the pod, but that is what interests me most about this series is getting a clone-centric perspective. And I think so far this season we've been getting a lot of it, and based off of the episode titles that we're going to see going forward, I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah,
I agree. Christian,
I'm in that same boat where I hope to get more of the clone-centric stuff, because it allows us to explore that question of how many clones actually felt Order 66 like a switch in their brain, and that was their own like conscience in the back being like, hey, maybe don't do that, but they didn't have a choice to not do it.
Yeah.
All right, well, I think that's everything for this week. Can't wait till next week. I'm still pumped for March, because March is going to be a busy month for Star Wars fans.
It's going to be crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. So this week,
Hey, we got him.
Hey,
we got them all lined up. So
Nice.
Christian, Star, Hunter, where can we all follow you?
In
Down
that
below.
order, that's
so,
linked.
Okay, so
In
for
the
those
order.
that are listening and not on our YouTube channel, where can they find you, Hunter?
You can find me on mostly Instagram, a little bit of TikTok at JGuyHunter, which there's one extra E there down below.
Oh no!
But yeah, that's where you can find me building all kinds of Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, you can find me at Kenobin_around on Instagram and TikTok. I haven't posted a TikTok in like 8 months now, so mainly on Instagram. But that's where you're going to see all my finished costumes, and I'm going to start probably delving more into the posting works in progress, because I've got a lot of things I got to get finished soon.
There you go. Star?
You can find me mostly on Instagram at Star Spangled Comet. A bunch of random stuff on TikTok, but I mostly recommend Instagram.
There you go. There you go. And you can also find us on Instagram at Star Wars Stuff Podcast. Really great news for our character of the week, which I know Star will be excited. Is our character of the week this week is Sev. So there is some fun facts coming your guys' way. We're also on Twitter at Stuff Pod. We're also on TikTok. Search Star Wars Stuff Podcast. And we also have email, StarWarsStuffPodcast@gmail.com. Facebook for all those that are watching a live stream on Facebook. Thank you so much. We are the Star Wars Stuff group and Star Wars Stuff podcast page. Please go on Apple Podcast, give us a review, even though it's all about David. And we also have a website that connection to our sister page called the Marvel Stuff Podcast, where we talk all things Marvel on there. That's a lot of fun, especially with all the new Marvel stuff coming out this year. We're also on Twitch. I cannot stress this enough. We have so much happening on Twitch right now, coming your guys' way, including something that I want to set up, which is where we get like a big group and play Ewok Hunt on PlayStation or Xbox. So
Yes.
if you guys are interested, I know Hunter's Xbox has kind of been like kind of iffy because of the service where he lives, but I would love to play that mode with a bunch of people. So if you three are interested, let me know. And then that's everything. We love you so much. We would not be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. So thank you so much for listening. Christian, Hunter, Star, always a pleasure having you on. Josh, I respect you. Thanks for being on. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to the Star Stuff Podcast. May the Force be with you. See you next week.